Hi, and welcome to Beyond the Paycheck. I'm Paula Christine. So today we're going to talk about investing and how you should get started. So welcome, Patti.
Thank you, Paula. Great to be here.
I know you're a former financial advisor. Now you're a financial coach. So when you were working with your clients or even coaching today, when it comes to investing, how should someone even get started?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially with women who tend to be a little bit more overwhelmed and have a little bit more fear when it comes to investing in money. One of the first things I say is start at the basics, and that is really understanding what your needs are from a cash flow perspective, which really comes back to what's coming in, what's going out, and having a handle on that budget, because the way you asset allocate will determine what you invest in. Right? So if you're 20, 30, 40 years away from retirement and you aren't going to be touching those assets for many, many years, your asset allocation will be very different than what it is if you were nearing retirement and you are going to be pulling funds from those assets. So getting a good handle on where you're at. And I always use the roadmap idea. If I were to drop you in the middle of the country blindfolded and I say, okay, go ahead and get home, and you had no phone and no GPS and no way to know where you were, the first question out of your mouth would be like, where am I? So that's the same question you have to ask yourself when you look at investing. It's like, where am I today? Where am I starting?
I really like that. That's really cool. I've never thought about it that way. But one thing that you were saying was that, you know, if you're younger, you would invest differently than as you're getting older. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of, even if they start younger, they never change. They never change their investment strategy. And as they get older, sometimes they're more aggressive than what they should be.
Absolutely. And that's why it's important to sit down and understand that cash flow. And you should be looking at your assets once a year and determine if it makes sense to rebalance that portfolio and what that looks like for you. This is not a one and done situation at all.
So let's say I'm 25 years old. I've got my first job. I sign up for my 401k. I want to do some investing inside of that. Maybe I want to do some investing outside of that. Where should I first start to look for information about what to do, what to choose?
Well, I have to be careful with this. So there's a lot of noise online. There's, oodles and oodles. If you were to Google this, you would get thousands and thousands of answers, and not everything online is accurate. We've all seen that. So my recommendation would be to potentially sit down with somebody that you trust, that you know, and that they know you, and have them kind of review what your goals are for the next, say 5 to 10 years. And then determine from there what makes the most sense. Because if you're 25, you might be looking at buying a house in the next couple of years. And if you're looking at buying a house in the next couple of years, that money should not be in the market. That should not be invested in a volatile kind of market where if you are looking at just your 401k and you've got, decades before you're going to touch that money, that could be, invested all in the market. So it really depends on what your needs are within your next few years of what's coming up for you.
My two key takeaways so far, Patti, are one, I'm picturing that giant map at the highway rest stop that says you are here. And then also, Googling what to do with your finances is probably about as useful as going on WebMD when you start to not feel well. And next thing you know, you think you're dying.
That's exactly it. Yes. We all have this, especially the younger generation. Well, even the older generation, we go online and we just Google it and it's like, okay, that's a mistake.
I know. I've had myself dying several times from WebMD.
Yeah.
Turns out it's just a lot of pollen in the air.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, that's exactly it. So I always say that there's so much noise, it's harder to hear yourself think.
I like that, and I think that it's very similar to not just the web, but if you were to watch any of the financial media, they don't make their money and get eyeballs on TVs and clicks on websites by saying everything is fine.
Right. It's all fear-based. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I'll pop in here is if someone's trying to sell you something, a product specifically that you don't understand, and there's a lot of products that have a lot of moving parts to them and you don't understand them, where you can turn around and teach that to a fourth grader, then you shouldn't be investing in it. So that means you don't understand it completely to be able to teach that to someone else, then that's not something that you should be investing in at that moment anyways. I'm not saying it's not a good product or it's a bad product. I'm just saying learn more about it before you put your money towards it.
I do that a lot with my clients sometimes as I'll say, okay, I explain something to them and I say, explain it back to me.
That's perfect. I love it.
And if they don't get it right, I'm like, okay, that's not right. Explain it again.
Yeah.
Just so that they completely understand what they're getting themselves into. Because as a former financial advisor, we see so many people bought things that they shouldn't have.
Right. That also comes into play when you're talking about different tax strategies. We were in a conversation once with a client, and my colleague was explaining what a Roth conversion was and why we were going to do that. And I could tell by the look on her face, she had no idea what we just said. And so I said, did that make sense to you? She's like, no, I have no idea what you just said. So I explained it a little bit differently. I kind of brought the terms more simplified and, oh, okay, I get that now. Okay, that makes sense. And so, what you just said, Paula, is perfect. It's like, okay, explain it back to me. That's a perfect way to determine if that person understood what was just said.
I'm really glad you both made that point. Like Paula said, having explained it back to you, and Patti saying, making sure you get it. Because I think sometimes there's this natural tendency to not want to appear uneducated or even in some cases dumb or stupid. If somebody had said to me, John, do you understand this? For my own ego, I might say, oh yeah, I get it. And I don't.
Right.
So making sure that your client understands it exactly is so critically important.
100%, John.
I also think that people, just even how we started the conversation about investing, is a lot of people, because they feel uneducated or dumb, won't even seek out help.
Right.
They'll just choose to do nothing.
Yeah, that could be costly in itself. Doing nothing or paralysis by analysis is that can cost you a lot of money over time. And, Paula, to your other question, kind of just circling back with that, there's a ton of great books out there.
I was going to ask you what your favorite books are.
There's quite a few. I just feel like there's so many around mindset, which is something that I really love talking about, because I can teach you the mechanics of money and teach you how, the simplicity of investing and just kind of keeping it simplified for us. But if you don't understand your relationship with money and your mindset around money and your money story from when you were little, then your external world will never really change dramatically if you don't understand that basic. So the mindset around money is something that I think is huge. So yeah, start with books, read about the mindset, read about the mechanics of money. Doing your due diligence is important, but there's nothing like having a conversation with somebody live. So again, find somebody that you trust and like and can have a conversation. And most financial advisors will give you a complimentary conversation or the discovery call.
We've spent a lot of time on this podcast on mindset. It's so important to understand your beliefs behind money. I was just writing something on that just before we got on this call. We've learned a lot. I know John and I, we've done probably, about 10 calls on mindset?
Of the 50, 60 episodes, yeah, probably.
Yeah. We just know it's so important to understand your beliefs and changing those beliefs, or at least having those beliefs grow so that you can grow and your wealth can grow.
Yeah, I think it's really poking holes in the limiting beliefs. If you were born into a scarcity mindset, with your family. And so unpacking all that and unlearning all that and then relearning and retraining and programming that subconscious. I mean, if you've had these many conversations, you know what I'm talking about. But it's so foundational and people just don't really address it because it's typically not discussed with financial advisors. It's more the mechanics of money, and here's how we're going to invest your funds, and here's some tax strategies we're going to do, and let's watch this Medicare threshold and some of those things. But it's not, a conversation where like, tell me about your childhood. What were some of the things you heard growing up about money? And then going into that, because that's a whole nother conversation. In fact, I heard recently that a lot of financial advisors are hiring life coaches into their firm or having as a freelancer, to come into the firm to help with those conversations.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, I thought so too. Because typically advisors aren't really trained in that.
No, we're not. I guess that's how aware you are. I was never trained in that either. I just have kind of picked it up on my own because I had to change my own mindsets. And not just about money. You have to change your mindsets about a lot of different things.
Yes.
And doing that is when you can grow as a person.
Absolutely. Good for you. Yeah, that's awesome. And then you bring that to your clients and that's a gift.
So my last question. So what have you learned about money that has changed your life? So if you're thinking about, if I could go back to, I'm 20 years old, what would you tell yourself?
If I can go back to my 20-somethings, what I didn't know then that I know now is the power of compound interest and how amazing that is. And if I just even had a small habit of a small savings, even if I was saving for a house or a new car or whatever, the habit of saving automatically every single month and the power of compounding over time, it's insane. And if you jump onto some of these online calculators, and find a compounding interest calculator and you put in some numbers, you will be shocked what will happen in terms of, I call it free money because it's just the money is working for you. You're not working hard for the money, the money's working hard for you. And had I understood that concept back then, I would be in a very different position today. So
Me too. So just, I know what compounding is, but just in case somebody who's listening doesn't, can you explain what that means?
Compounding is just the earning interest over time. Here's a very simple explanation. If I were to give you a choice of, I'm going to give you a penny, but I'm going to double it every single day for 31 days, or I'm going to write you a check for $1 million, which would you prefer? And if you chose a penny today, doubled every single day for 31 days, you would have over $10 million. So you would be much wealthier if you chose that. And that's the power of compounding. That's spoken in very simple terms.
Okay, Patti, so I'm going to take you up on that offer. I'll start expecting my pennies every day.
Okay, well,
I'm just kidding.
We'll have to talk off air on that one.
Just kidding.
You invest a penny every day and double it every day.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I would have known that when I was younger too. And I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't until I got into the business. But nobody ever talks about money.
Yeah, I've done some workshops at some high schools, and I always talk about compounding, and I show examples. And I had actually one gal say to me, "How is that legal?" I just thought, oh, God bless you. It was amazing because most kids have no clue, like, oh my gosh, that's insane. How does that happen? And then if you talk about it being within a Roth IRA, which is a whole other conversation, that's all tax-free and what that means. So that's opening up another can of worms here. But boy, that would have been a beautiful thing. If I put, all my money in Roths at that age and let it compound, oof.
Yeah, I talk a lot to young people. It's just getting them to take action.
Yeah. I mean, at that age, they're talking about, the sports car and buying the latest iPhone or the gadgets and whatnot. But, some of the kids that I would show those examples with, they were pretty ignited. I mean, they were like, okay, where do I start? Where do I go for this? And it was just, it was fun to see that.
That's life-changing advice, Patti. I know that law is going into effect here in Michigan to mandate financial education in high schools, and getting that education out there is just so important.
Yeah, fantastic. I love to hear that that's in schools because we're not seeing that here. And I'm happy to see that coming through the different states in the country, finally. Oh, finally.
Yes, a little late for me, but I'm glad that it'll be there for my children and grandchildren.
Yes, we can help others.
So, Patti, if somebody would like to reach out to you, how would they get a hold of you?
My recommendation would be to go to mindinghermoney.com. It's MINDING, mindinghermoney.com, where you can download a roadmap and watch a short training there, and then we'll be connected that way.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you, Paula.
John, do you have any further questions?
No, I think I'm good. And I believe we're going to have Patti back next week as well, right?
Correct. She's going to come back. We're going to talk about women and money, my favorite subject.
Sounds great.
If anybody would like to reach out to me, they can reach me at paulachristine.com or check out my website at paulachristine.com.